Welcome to the Aftermatch with Kirsten Beav. Come for the rugby, stay for the Aftermatch. We're back. Normal programming has resumed, Beav. But this year, your hot word of the week has been magic. There's been so many magical moments. Harry Potter has been the most magical player. Well, now it is your time to shine because we have more magic being sprinkled on this program.
Well, we are getting some magic sprinkled, and we have a chance for our listeners to also get their hands on some magic, and that's Black Magic Tackle. We've got our first sponsor on board.
Thank you.
And it's the great Kiwi company, Black Magic Tackle, of course, specialising in fishing gear and tackle. And we will explain to you later on the show how you guys are going to be able to win with our great mates at Black Magic Tackle.
Yeah, our Black Magic All Black of the Week is the segment that we're going to be doing. And as Beav says, we will explain a little more later on. International season is finally here, Beav.
Yes.
Super Rugby's been fantastic, but it's about to get even better.
Yeah, it was quite exciting, wasn't it? Obviously, scheduling your weekend around some of these later night fixtures.
Oh, what plans did you have to change?
Oh, just, I guess, having afternoon naps. At my age, you need an afternoon nap if you're going to stay up to 10 o'clock at night to watch the Lions.
Later for the Lions, yeah.
Yeah, and I just had to watch the Lions. I can't wait for it. It's obviously something that stops the rugby world every 12 years. Every 4 years, but 12 years for Australia, 12 years for us. So can't wait for it to really get going. But if the first one was anything to go by, it's exciting times.
How did you schedule your naps for the 3 a.m. in Cape Town?
Yeah, look, I'll be brutally honest. That was a record and watch when I had a window of opportunity when the kids were also napping. And then that ended up being a nap on me, so we all napped. So there was bits and pieces that I had to go back and watch again.
Great to have international back. On the weekend, though, 3 demolition jobs. Really, if you look at the Māori All Blacks, absolutely dominated the Japanese 15. They've got Scotland back here in New Zealand this weekend. The box over the Barbars procession job, as it should have been, though. When you've got the back-to-back world champions coming up against a team that has literally been thrown together during the week, and then the Lions just completely annihilating the force in the end. Yeah,
the Māori All Black result certainly didn't surprise me. It's not New Zealand Day, but it's not far off. The players and the quality of players involved. In Japan, there's no way around it. Japan's in a pretty tough spot at the moment. I know they've got Wales coming up, and that's sort of two worlds colliding there of two nations that are going through a tough time of it. And the Barbars game, I got to admit, I thought it might have been a bit closer considering the forward packs that the Barbars were putting out there and some of the hard edge that I thought they would have had. But in the end, the Springboks, too well organised, too well drilled, and the moment of the week came from that game. And there was the usual Springboks physical demolition up front, but it was some of the skill that we know that they've got in that back line that was an absolute treat. Multi-phase, and then I think a grubber through from Delande from about 40 or 50 out. And not Cheslin, but
he scored a few himself, though.
He scored a few, looked absolutely electric, but his mate on the other wing, his lookalike, Kurtley just picked up the grubber, what would have appeared to be looking effortlessly, and finished it like the champion winger he is. So Ardie grabbed our moment of the weekend for me and got me off the couch and thinking, Tony Brown, he is allowed to put some of his little touches in on this.
But do we see that in a few months here at Eden Park and Sky Stadium in Wellington?
Unlikely.
Yeah.
Unlikely. And I think I've seen interviews from Tony Brown recently around, how much he wants to change. And obviously, when Brownie highlighted the fact you don't want to change it too much. We've got a wonderful formula here. They, again, were so ruthless up front. And a few forwards that I think were debuting and that we've never seen before. Obviously, they play up north now, so we don't always see their new guys. But what they are always is massive, strong men who did a job on the Barbars.
Do they have the best athletes in the world, do you think? The backs? And they just have never quite reached their potential with the game plan that the Boks have played?
Well, it's a funny word, like best athletes, when you think, what is the ideal athlete? Like, I look at Rieko Ioane and say, that's my ideal back. As far as an athlete, big, strong, evasive, fast. But then you've got Cheslin Kolbe, and so obviously, how can you ignore him? Poor Ricky Riccatelli, learn how strong Cheslin was.
What about his first hit up? He went about 10 metres back when he ran into 2 box forwards.
Poor Riccatelli was probably thinking, it's been a great week here in Cape Town for my 20 minutes off the bench. And then Cheslin Kolbe, who, when you look across that South African team, probably not the last one you want to be charging straight at you. Well, jeez, power. Just shows you power, Kirst.
Powerful.
Yes.
So powerful. Okay, well, let's move on. Let's move to Western Australia.
Yep.
46,000 at the cricket stadium, Optus Stadium. A beautiful sight.
Yes.
There's something about the Lions, isn't there? The dress-ups, the costumes that people get involved in. There's a spirit and an atmosphere that comes with the Lions.
It's a carnival. We all know when they came through New Zealand, it was like, a 4 or 5 week party in the country, because wherever the Lions fans went, instantly all the cafes, bars, restaurants became alive, and it's a wonderful thing. I was actually watching it with my oldest son, all of 4 years old, and Jacko wanted to know where the Blue fans were, because he could see a lot of people in red. And I said, well, that's going to be the way it is. There's a lot of travelling supporters, but wonderful sights out of Perth, and pretty impressive performance.
What did you explain to young Jacko, 4 years old, about the Lions?
It was tough to talk to him about where they're from, so we just settled on England. And I know it's going to offend all the Irish, Scottish and Welsh out there, but I'm explaining to a 4-year-old at 10 o'clock at night, so cut me some slack on that one. And he said, who are we supporting? And I said, well, we're Kiwis, the Anzac Spirit, we're going to be supporting the Blue team. And then that's when he turned around and said, where's the Blues fans? I said, yeah, we're going to be outnumbered.
The Force, even though the scoreline in the end was heavily favoured towards the Lions, the Force didn't do too badly. They had a few shining lights themselves across that 80 minutes.
Absolutely.
Considering where that team has been. They weren't even in Super Rugby a few years ago.
No, and I mean, where they've been for the last 5 weeks. They've literally had no games of footy. It was a really interesting scenario, because you're sitting back at half-time going, well, the game's over. But how's it over? Because you felt that the Force had most of the game. And look, I wasn't taking my own stats there, but I'm guessing the Lions got into the 22 3 times in that first half, and they scored 3 tries. They were just so ruthless with their entries when they got down to that part of the field. And then in the second half, they just became even more ruthless with any opportunities, the handling. I was mightily impressed with that backline in particular. And I guess there's so many storylines about that backline from a Southern Hemisphere point of view.
Can I read you some of those storylines? So the
Please.
ground announcer, I know that you love a little bit of spice.
Yep.
Well, the ground announcer at Optus Stadium, when he was announcing the two teams to the field, he took liberties, and this is what he said. Our former Australian, Matt Hansen. Another former Aussie, Sione Tuipulotu. It's the Kiwi and now Irishman, James Lowe. The former South African schoolboy, now Scotsman, Pierre Skuman.
Brilliant. Yeah. I mean,
just to rub it in.
We would be a little bit too polite here in New Zealand, but the Aussies, I love it that they've done that. And they will be prepared for that. Like, when you're going on this big tour and what's at stake, they will have talked about there'll be media campaigns against us. There'll be some scandal that they'll try to throw at us. There'll be all this sort of stuff because, I mean, Australia and England, for example, and I know it's more than just England, but both those countries from a media point of view aren't, I guess, backwards and coming forwards on that sort of thing. And I can see, I mean, we've had it here with the All Blacks when there's been Spygate and all that sort of thing when the All Blacks have been in Australia. So once it ramps up, I think there'll be some more little digs like that. But you mentioned a couple of Hansen, so impressive. And so busy as a footballer. We talk about our busy wingers here in New Zealand. He is the epitome of a busy winger. Look, is there egg on Australian face right now? Where was he 3 or 4 years ago when he made that bold decision to go? I feel a bit for him because he's probably not, and I feel a bit for Australia because he's probably not somebody who, if he's not in the right environment, doesn't jump out off the paper. He's not this physical bruising athlete or whatever, but he's just got so much to him. He was great. J-Lo, for so long, I've obviously, I'm his biggest fan as far as James Lowe goes. Huge left foot. Look, if I'd been All Black coach, he would have played a test, so he wouldn't have been eligible to go on this tour. How he was never an All Black, I'll never know. But he was incredible. Tuipulotu, you mentioned him. In the midfield, geez, he's got some class about him. His handling, obviously he's got all the physical attributes of a top midfielder, but his handling, once they got on a roll, the ability to get it through the hands, flat and square, just kept freeing up. J-Lo, Hansen and the likes down the outside channels. What about Finn Russell? He was consistently in the game and far more involved than we see most 10s. Yeah, they went through him a lot. Yeah. And so when you look at Finn Russell, he's obviously got all the skills at the moment. He's very sharp, obviously between the ears, but also sharp as far as the speed and that goes. And what it looked like to me is it looked like Ireland from a few years ago when Johnny Sexton had his hands on the ball, was the main conductor for Ireland, and they've literally just chucked Finn Russell into it, and he's just taken over, and he could possibly, because of himself and maybe more of a runner than Johnny was, he could even be more of a threat and it could be more potent. The interesting thing for me, Kirst, with the Lions is, yes, they're playing like Ireland, but where teams have probably been able to hold Ireland or even break them down, if they can stop the multi-phase, stop the speed of ruck, the Lions are going to be a different proposition simply because you sprinkle in a little bit more X factor. Yeah, I know we've talked about J-Lo and Hansen, who are always there for Ireland, but you couple into that some midfield X factor into Tuipulotu. You couple in to, I don't even know if he'll make the team, but someone like a Pollock, for example. You can hold people, and if they've got no plan B, like sometimes Ireland sometimes shows, then where do they go to? But you can hold team, but if there's enough X factor on the field, which the Lions are going to have, if they just go through their systems and their Irish sort of phases that they often do, they are going to be a tough proposition to hold, particularly with the Finn Russell factor there at 10.
Well, let's talk about him then. Pollock, Henry Pollock, the 20-year-old that is in charge of Bill the Lion, the teddy that sits side of field and is with him 24/7 throughout the tour. This kid can play.
Can play. He's such a unique flanker, isn't he? I know he played number 80. I've seen him play 7.
The skill set, though.
That's what
it's
I mean.
like Ardie Savea.
Yeah, that's what I mean, the skill set. He's literally like a back in there at the moment. And just because you mentioned Ardie Savea, I don't think physically he's Ardie. Like Ardie's shorter but squarer and can physically dominate you with no room to move him.
Give him time, he's 20.
Oh, no, but I'm just saying, no, he's just a different style of footballer.
Yeah.
He's taller, lankier. He's never going to be Ardie physically, but he's going to have the pace that maybe Ardie doesn't, or footwork and so on. So he's a different sort of footballer, but he's great to watch.
Where does he fit in? Where does he fit into this team?
Well,
the test team, you know what I'm talking about.
He's not going to be 7 because that'll be
Van der Fleer.
Van der Fleer. He'll be 7. It's not going to be a straight away walking back. Could you imagine him coming off the bench with 25 to go?
Great.
You know, so that'll be an option there. But he has certainly box office.
Yes. Remember he did the pulse check?
Yeah.
Well, he doesn't mind a wee dust up. He doesn't mind getting involved in the wee rough stuff, does he? He always seems to find himself in the centre of the action. Is it because he's young and impressionable? Are players targeting him because of his age? What do you think it is? Does he just have no cares in the world? He plays with this like fun, freedom, exuberance of youth.
Yeah, I wonder if there's a preconceived sort of perception out there that we're going to get him.
Yes.
I think Champion Decoupe got involved in push and shove. And for me, there wasn't much going on, but I think it was might have been a case of I'm going to get him. He's got under my skin already because he was yahooing a bit when the try was scored. But it's brilliant. And they're going to, all the Australian teams are going to have to be careful that they don't get lured into doing that sort of thing and doing something dumb. It's funny we mentioned James Lowe at the start. That's what J-Lo, I know, he's getting older, and I don't know if he's losing the energy for it, but he was very similar. If there was a push and shove or there was a yahoo to be done.
He does that though.
He
loves a wee yahoo.
I think he's toned it down a little, but I remember before I actually met him and played with him at the Chiefs and loved him as a teammate, I used to look back at my TV and go, look at this character.
What did you think of him?
Clown. And thinking someone needs to get him. But when you're actually playing with him, it's great. And he brings such energy and enthusiasm. And as I said, I think he must be over 30 now, J-Lo, so he's probably losing a bit of that, that Yahoo spark. But the young fella reminds me a lot of him. Okay,
well, Henry Pollock did something on social media this week. The Lions' social content is absolutely brilliant. He picked his ideal rugby player.
Yes.
So we want you to do the same, Beav. So I'm going to give you 7 categories.
Yes.
And you have to tell us which rugby player you would pick, and that is your ideal player.
Rightio, go on.
Ready for it?
Go on.
You love being put on the spot?
Yes.
Kick.
Daniel Carter.
Tackling.
Sammy Tuipulotu.
Strength.
Oof. I'm going to go left field here. Well, only because I've seen enough docos and I watched is it the Rising Sun or that, and they talk about old Ox from South Africa when he comes on and sets his scrum. And when you look at him go out there, you're not moving him. So let's go Ox.
The Ox and Jay. Speed.
I'll stay in South Africa. It'd have to be Cheslin Colby.
Has to be.
When I saw what he did against the Barbars, it just reinforced the speed is ridiculous.
Footwork.
Footwork? I'm going to go one of my old teammates, just because I know
That's
that...
not like you.
Yeah, well, just because I know that I could never lay a hand on him when we were playing touch or warm-up games. Tim Nanai Williams.
He wouldn't be the only one that you've never laid a hand on, though.
Respectfully, just the one.
Timmy
That's
Nana
you showing me respect, sorry. Yeah.
Footwork, sorry. Leadership. Whose leadership qualities?
One and only McCaw. Mm-hmm. Goes without saying.
You got the two greats in there. Rugby IQ. Who's rugby now?
Toss up for me. I've two halfbacks, which I thought they just controlled their teams at all the levels. Furu Dupree or George Gregan just seemed to be a step ahead and so clever. But I'm gonna go for Springbok. Furu Dupree on that one.
Heart.
Well, everyone's got a big heart, haven't they?
What about yourself? How was your heart?
I thought you were nominating me for it.
Yeah. Put yourself in there.
No, let's go the little fella that plays for the Chiefs and the All Blacks, because he's 72 kgs. Great to have Damien McKenzie in.
He's got a lot of heart.
A lot of heart.
I actually threw that extra one in there.
Yeah, thanks.
That was 8. I said to you there were only 7 attributes, but that is your ideal rugby player. Make sure you comment on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Spotify, Apple, who would make up your ideal rugby player as well with those 7 different categories, and we'll read some of the responses next week. Beav, it's test week for the All Blacks.
Yes.
The French are here. We don't know what kind of French side that will be turning up, but it doesn't matter because it is test season. How excited are you? What are these weeks like in the All Blacks camp? The first week, we saw them get fit out last week, so they were in the big room and the Adidas boxes were out. The kit that you've still got sitting in your garage.
Yeah, hey boys, you don't know how it's all going to pan out, so don't all wear them at once. You might need them in 20 years' time.
Make sure you stock up.
Yeah, stock up. Sometimes the sunglasses 20 years later probably don't look very fashionable, but just keep them as your fishing or your golfing ones.
What is the first week like, though? They've been in camp together about a week and a half now.
Yeah.
How much do you actually do? Is it just a scene setter? I mean, what do you actually do?
No, well, it's interesting that they've got that extra bit now. We sometimes went straight from assembling on a Sunday to then playing the following weekend. That extra 3 days will be invaluable for them to have. They'll be able to obviously get all the commercial stuff, which I know they do a lot of earlier now, but as you say, the outfitting and all that, that's time consuming. But I just think those extra few days is really beneficial, because you've got to remember, you've got 5 or 6 rugby minds sitting there on their hands for 6 months looking forward to this, and they're the key to it. Because, I mean, I guess the last time we played an under-strength French team, I was 10. DC had done his Achilles. We were severely affected with No McCaw, Ardie Williams, Rodney Soyolo, all these experienced guys. And we started the first week down in Dunedin, and it was literally get there on a Sunday, play there, and it's just the information that just got thrown at you. It's a lot to process when, as I say, you've got all these great rugby minds who want to be coaching their boys, and then they go, bang, here's the information we've got. And sometimes that is too much. And so, obviously, these guys have coached this group for a year now, so the calling systems and all of that will be embedded. But it'll be, I guess the key for them will be just being able to get clarity as quickly as they can. So then they come Saturday night under the roof in Dunedin to go bang at this first one in the French. I mean, because the French team's a bit unknown, and like, certainly I don't want to get into the fact that some of the big names aren't there. I don't think they will dive too much into the French. They would have, of course, seen trends and sort of themes that you can see the French doing for the Six Nations this year, because DuPont didn't play a lot of those, so it'll probably differ, but they will be very much focused on themselves and what they want this team to be. And yes, we always know Test 1, usually traditionally a bit scratchy.
Yeah.
But just with the players that are in the squad and who they've named already, it's so exciting. Can't wait.
Yeah, you're going to name your All Blacks team to take on the French. But before we go there, you got people fired up last week when you said that the All Blacks will be number 1 in the world by the end of the year.
Just there 5 people up to it.
I mean, they loved it.
Apologies.
For the most part, you loved it and you actually agreed with Beav. There's clearly a few people watching from overseas. And look, we welcome you all. So
We do.
great to have you enjoying the podcast. But clearly there were a few Irish, South Africans as well that just thought you were an absolute joke.
Yes.
But the ones that didn't.
They're not the first ones to think that.
The ones that didn't, the ones that agree and think that the All Blacks will be number one, let's map it out for people.
Yep.
Let's map out the year because there are 13 tests in 2025.
Yep.
Obviously, we dropped a number last year. Was it 3 in the end?
No, I think it was more than that.
5. Was it 5?
It was 4 or 5.
Okay, well, this year, let's go through like you did in Super Rugby and let's bank some games here. Take us through. And that clearly worked really well for the Chiefs.
Yeah.
But if we're looking at the All Blacks season, the 13 tests, take us through the schedule.
So we go 3 tests with the French. First one, Dunedin, Wellington, and then the Tron for test number 3. The Tron will not be holding a decider because I'm banking all 3. We're going to get off to a flyer this year with the All Blacks. We're going to bank the 3 against the French. We've then got a couple in Argentina. Now, after what a understrength Argentinian team did to the Lions in Dublin, it ain't going to be easy in Buenos Aires second week, and I'm going to have a crack here. Cordoba.
I think you nailed that.
In the first week, I'm going to say we're going to bank. I'm going to bank 2 there.
You're banking 2.
It ain't going to be an easy bank, but we're going to bank 2. Then what we've all been waiting for. The mouth is absolutely watering for this one, Kirst. Back-to-back games versus the 2 times defending champions, Springboks.
At the place the All Blacks never lose.
The 50 test winning record goes on the line. Is it 50 or 100?
It's a long time.
I think it's 50, isn't it? And so Springboks, September 6th, all roads lead to there. I'm going to say the magic of the Garden keeps the unbeaten season alive. I'm going to say the Wellington jinx or curse.
The capital curse.
The capital curse could play a factor in week 2. And if we are to drop one this year, there's my statement. This year,
okay,
it'll be the capital curse that gets us again. I think up until then we'll be fine. And then we got 3 against the Wallabies, and I'm banking 2. Against the Wallabies, banking, and then this wonderful Grand Slam tour of Ireland, Scotland, England, and Wales, and of course Ireland and Chicago on the way up. And they'll have to right the wrongs of that Chicago game, Soldier Field a few years ago. Which, who knows, the Aftermatch could be doing a live broadcast from. You just never know. But great end of year tour. But again, I think where everything's at and where I think we are headed, I think that could be an undefeated Grand Slam tour.
So you're banking 12 of 13.
I am. 12 of 13. No pressure, lads.
Money in the bank.
Can't wait to hear from our Irish and South African listeners. But 12 from 13 for the All Blacks this year.
And that is how the All Blacks get to number 1 in the world by the end of the year.
And I'll just do some quick sums. It's a 93% winning rate this year.
Yep, and that's about right, isn't it?
Yeah,
that is about
I've
right.
got no idea about that calculation, but we'll say 93.
Okay, I want you to give us some bold predictions.
Yep.
Tell us, what happens to Ardie Savea in 2025? Where does Ardie Savea finish the year?
It's fascinating you say finish the year because obviously that's 6 months away in Cardiff, November 23. And right now, 2 weeks ago, I'd have said, I'd probably finish at number 7. But Luke Jacobson and Wallace Atiti are not there to start with. Therefore, I can't see any other thing happening than Ardie at 8 in these French tests. And then all of a sudden, that opens the door for other players, for form, for results. So Duplessis Creevy, for example, he'll be number 7 to start with, I'd think. And Sammy Penny-Finau, I would presume, will be 6 when you look at the original squad picked and the positions that they can all fill. Therefore, Ardie finishing the year at 7, still most likely, but depending on what unfolds. As I say, if that loose forward trio comes in and plays a blinder, if Wallace Atiti's injury is longer than anticipated, if Luke Jacobson's back and they fiddle it around, there's so many dependables on that, so many things that could change where Ardie finishes up. We're none the wiser. We really are none the wiser.
So that wasn't a bold prediction at all from Beav.
7. I'll say 7. I'll say 7.
Okay, bold. Real bold.
So bold.
Who forces the selectors?
12?
It could be.
That's bold enough for you?
That's bold.
Yeah.
Who forces the selectors? By the way, Andre Esterhuizen finished the game, the 20 minutes against South Africa and the Barbars and the Lucies. He's a midfielder.
Yes,
See,
of course he did.
Rassie just makes his own rules.
Bless him.
He makes his own rules up. Who forces the selectors' hands, do you think? Who could be a surprise into the 23 this year that maybe we're not expecting by the end of the year?
Well, there's a thing in gambling. You always back a horse that keeps delivering for you. And so far, that guy has been our main man from the Landers, Timothy. So let's just say that Tavatava Nawai continues this dream run. He gets in and around some amazing players. And he is, when you think about the All Black backs and how many of them can play 10 or 15, how many of them can play 12 or 15, I think obviously Geordie and then Rieko to the wing, he is another ideal benchman. Like, you can have some fun around your selections with him because you've got him being another midfielder winger. You've got all these other multi-position players in there. I think he'd been an unbelievable 23 man.
Okay, that was interesting. That was bold from you. Where does Rieko Ioane finish the year?
Yeah, this is an interesting one. It'll come down to whether any of these other guys can take their opportunities.
Yeah.
If Proctor can take that month or so of great Hurricanes form into the All Blacks, how
many chances do these guys get?
Well, I mean, the other one, the big elephant in the room, and he probably is an elephant at the moment because he hasn't been on the field much and being able to run it off, is Leonard Brown. Like, he's an 80-test All Black.
He's not an elephant.
Oh, wow, who knows how fit he is.
He's in his oxygen chamber.
Yeah,
he's like the spaceman.
Who knows? Apologies, Anton, on a big listener of the show. Whether or not he gets a chance and an extended chance. Like, he's played 80 tests.
I know.
And how much of a run has he had in one of those midfield jerseys? Is this the year that, I know everyone's thinking, Proctor will get a 13 crack and maybe Rico's on the wing, but is this the year they go, rightio, Leonard Brown, consistent performer for years on years now, right, here's a jersey in the midfield for 5 games straight. Has he ever played 5 games straight? Apart from when he first came in, when he first got his opportunity as a real young fella, there was injury crisis, and they gave him a decent run to start with.
2019 World Cup, semi-final. Wasn't he in the midfield?
Yeah, but he got the midfield job then. But at that same tournament, we're still talking of rotating between Sonny, Crotty, Goodhue. You know, it was still like that. So I'm just fascinated to see if he gets a decent, long, continued run as well.
So do you think, how does that actually play out? How many games is a decent run for some of these guys? They're not all going to get long and lengthy opportunities to play in this jersey. And if they have one good game, do they then get to back up? Or is it already premeditated because they've looked at who they've got?
Well, you look at that midfield and you go, do the coaches know where they want to end up? Do they have a preconceived idea what their midfield that they want to probably start developing and what have you? So
for 2027.
Potentially. So does someone like Leonard Brown get 1 test to show his wares, 2 tests, 3 tests? Does Proctor does Leonard Brown get more of a chance than some of the others who are just coming into the squad? So that's the interesting thing. And this is us presuming that because they've only named 2 wingers, someone like Rieko has become very much a winger option. Obviously, we all saw the social media post of him running around for a bib and, you know, like I'm in the media now, so you do make a mountain out of a molehill, but that could literally have been a 2-minute shot.
But hold on a minute. He's wearing an 11 jersey. Anton Leonard Brown's wearing a 13 jersey. Cortez is wearing 9. So these guys were in their positions, but Rieko put the caption out there, I've got God on my side, so everything will be all good. Is he putting it out there to soften the blow if he is named on the wing so there's not this massive backlash?
Do you think our number one promoter of the game this year gives 2 hoots whether there's going to be a backlash between him
I do think so. Do you know why? Because after those 3 weeks that he was crazy on social media, he then posted something about don't attack my family. If he wasn't reading it and didn't care, he wouldn't put something like that up there. Yeah, you just leave it.
I just don't know how that's got anything to do with whether he's playing for the All Blacks in 13 or 11.
Well, if he's playing, he doesn't want to be a winger, does he? We know this. He does not want to be a winger. He wants to be in the midfield.
Of course, but he's put up a bib.
I feel like he's just softening the blow. If it is to happen,
I feel we need to get Rieko on for a tell-all.
Come on for a tell-all.
There's a chair right here, Rieko.
Yeah, we're waiting for you. Okay, what happens with the All Blacks 10 jersey? What happens with Damien and Bowden?
Again, and you know, I've long said it. If Damien's, your long-term 2027 project, then you can't get jittery feet on it. And I felt last year there were times that, from a selection point of view, they got jittery on it. And yet Damien will be the first to admit there were times there where he let himself down. But if you can bank performance on performance, like, for example, he led them to that, I guess you would call it, but the odds would tell you, it was an upset victory in Dublin.
Yeah.
And then a week later, he was gone again. So I think they've got to either commit one way or the other. Look, Bodie had some wonderful games this year, and he outplayed Damien in that quarterfinal in Hamilton, hands down. No denying that. But at some point, you've got to say, what's that 2027 team look like? And I'm not a believer that you have to sort of start playing your team from now, because the All Blacks have a history of winning every test match. All that's what we want to be achieved. So therefore, Bodie's there, and he's always going to be a wonderful asset to this team because he's as good as any first five in the world. But if Damien is your man, then you have to give him, of the 14, you might have to give him 11. Or give him 10 at minimum if they have that perception about him.
And when does Ruben Love get an opportunity? Because right now, so long as there's no injuries, touch wood there isn't, well, Jordan will be the 15 for the All Blacks, which means whoever's not at 10 will be on the bench. When does Ruben Love get an opportunity? Because right now he is the third choice 10 because there is no one else in there. He also needs opportunities.
Yeah, I think from a starting point of view in the 10 jersey, if you were talking Ruben's opportunities.
When would be the natural test if you look at that calendar?
Well, let's see what the first two French games look like.
So you're thinking number 3 in Hamilton.
Number 3 in the Tron, but then Damien will want to play in the Tron. But outside of that, then I think there will be some players that won't get a start till the end of year tour. And let's be honest, Wales, respectfully, and don't stop listening there. We love having our Welsh people there, but they're not having a great run of it, and maybe it's Edinburgh and Scotland, or Scotland and Edinburgh.
Okay. Who wins World Player of the Year? Is it a New Zealander? Does it come from the Lions series?
No, it's Ardie Savea.
Again. Ardie Savea.
I'm just going on his Super Rugby form, and then he's going to carry that through into the black jersey. Like, that's something else. If he can carry on that trajectory, or not even trajectory, I've got a graph there where he's going up. He doesn't even have to go up. If he flatlines from now, he's World Player of the Year.
Again, that is crazy, but not.
He's in a sweet spot. He's in his absolute peak of his powers right now.
He is.
Who would bet against them? Maybe, from what I've seen in the weekend, if the Lions have a dominating series over the Wallabies, you'd presume someone like a Finn Russell's going to be absolutely centre to that. So he would probably come to calculations. He's obviously just won a title with Beav too, done some great things with Scotland. So early bold prediction. Let's have the grand final now. Finn Russell, Ardie Savea.
Oh, I like it a lot. Okay, those are your bold predictions. When do the All Blacks actually pick their team for a week? Obviously, the public get it on a Thursday. When do you internally find out whether you're playing a test on Saturday or not? Will they know?
You'd have to be pretty silly not to be able to work out from the Monday walkthroughs. When you start walking around and you get given a bib, which is the reserve bib, you work out that, okay,
red jerseys, reserves, yellow stars.
It starts, he's over there, is he? Okay. I'll stay over here. Okay. But no, once you're internally involved, it's not rocket science.
But do they sit down and tell people, or how does it actually work?
On the Tuesday, they would probably tell you officially. Monday, you start to join the dots and go, okay.
Yeah, right.
It was never hard in my situation. I sort of, Carter's only on one crutch. Yep, here we play.
Okay, so let's name your All Blacks team to take on the French then.
Okay, my team.
Your team, not Razor's team.
Right.
Who is Stephen Donald putting in to take on the French for the first All Blacks test of the year in Dunedin?
And we've just found out that Tamaiti.
No Tamaiti.
This is obviously before the All Blacks went in. So of that squad that was named, obviously no Tamaiti, no Wallace, no Luke Jacobson. We're presuming no Anton Leonard-Brown.
Yeah.
So with that all in mind, here is my team. Up front, the old firm are back together.
Are they?
De Groot, Taylor, Lomax, gone with them. Barrett and Va'e. High hopes for those two. The loose forward trio really mixed up a little bit because of those injuries from Jacobson and Wallace Atiti, but Finau will be at 6, Karifi at 7, and Ardie will be at 8. A very contrasting loose forward mix. I quite like it. Cam Roygaard will be at 9, Mackenzie at 10. I'm going to go off the bibs. I'm going to buy into the social media hype. Red bib number 11, Rieko Ioane. He will be left wing for me.
Wait, isn't Red reserve?
Don't know. I don't know. But I'm going Rieko, number 11. Geordie and Proctor, the Hurricanes, are going to reunite for Test 1. And 14 will be Sevu. And 15 will be the great Will Jordan.
Okay. Love it. Super strong up front. A debut. A debut for Dupes.
Yes.
You said you liked the loose trio.
I like it.
Contrasting.
You've got your guy who's going to be on the ground, working hard, Karifi. He's going to be across the park. He's going to be a menace at the breakdown with Ardie. We know how menacing Ardie is at the breakdown. Ardie will be Ardie. I don't need to go into what he's going to bring. He just brings everything. And then you've got Sammy Penny Finau, who really came on that last 5 weeks of Super Rugby. He's that big ranging number 6, physically could be anything. Obviously, he hasn't had we talk about long runs in the All Black jerseys. I think he's had 1 or 2 here and there. This is his chance.
Midfield. I thought Geordie Barrett was coming off the bench for you because you're rewarding Super Rugby form earlier this year.
Yeah, I was. And
walking contradiction.
And because I wanted Geordie to get used to playing at that high level again. Sorry.
You've offended the Welsh.
Or
You've
URC
offended
lovers.
the Irish. You've called the Lions just England.
Yeah, well, that's to my son in the safety of my lounge, explaining the geography. I mean, if there was a better way to explain it to a 4-year-old, the geography of the Lions, I'll have your welcome comments from the north. But no, look, Geordie. Well, I just thought. Yes, I thought that they might ease Geordie back into it and reward the boys who play local. But when you look at it, if we're going to put Rieko on the wing, midfield, such a critical position. It wouldn't be fair on, say,
2 newbies.
For example, putting a Tawatawa Nawai and Proctor together. It wouldn't be fair. So the vice captain, Geordie, he will be there with Proctor. And although it's a new midfield, it's not really a new midfield because they've played so much together for the Hurricanes. And it's an exciting midfield. I like the look of it. Obviously, we all got excited by Proctor's return and what he did for the Hurricanes before they fell short there in Canberra. So, no, I like the midfield, and then still got Rieko there on the left wing.
Just to throw a spanner in the works, your backs reserves?
Yeah, backs reserve. It's Dunedin.
Yeah.
So you've got to have Tawatawa Nawai. He will bring that house down when he takes the jacket off.
Has he got a chant?
I'm sure Joey Wheeler sorted him out one. Joey's given him about 5 nicknames, so it'd be an insult to the difference if he's got all these songs for people like the Barracuda and Naholo, and if he hasn't got one for Tawatawa Nawai.
So the difference in Dunedin comes off the bench. Who are your other 2?
Well, you can probably go any one of. We presume Leonard Brown's not considered.
Yeah.
But Bodie, obviously. Yeah. So Bodie covers your 15 and your 10.
And
Tawatawa
Cortez.
And Cortez.
Okay.
Yep. Hotham. I wouldn't be surprised if they go Hotham.
Okay. Righto. Back to the top. Back to our Black Magic sponsor. Thank you so much. And our segment. So This is how you can get involved. And this is how you can win a weekly Black Magic prize pack, Beav. Every week, we're going to name our Black Magic All Black of the Week.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to name one, but we want you guys to name one too. So we're going to put a clip out there on Sunday night before we film our next podcast there on the Monday. And all you got to do is you just
cast your vote.
Cast your vote, and we will announce the winner that wins themselves a nice little Black Magic prize pack from Black Magic Tackle. So awesome stuff to have Black Magic on board, and great opportunity for you guys to tell us who was good. Yeah. And to win a prize.
Absolutely. Cannot wait to get your involvement. And don't forget to like and subscribe just in case we do put some extra podcasts out there. You will then get notified that there has been a new podcast dropped. So make sure you subscribe on all platforms. That is the Aftermatch. Come for the rugby, stay for the Aftermatch. We'll be back maybe later in the week. Set your notifications, like and subscribe on all of our social media channels. And once again, a big thank you to our first ever sponsor, Black Magic Tackle.